The morning sun spilled across the hills of Enugu, painting the roofs of red earth houses with a soft golden glow. Among the villagers, one child's cry had rung loudest many years ago, the cry of Adaeze. From the very beginning, her mother whispered that the gods had carved her from the clay of beauty itself. She had large almond eyes that sparkled like pools under moonlight, skin so smooth it seemed kissed daily by palm oil and sunshine, and a gait that drew eyes even before she learned how to walk properly. As Adaeze grew, her beauty became the talk of her neighborhood. Neighbors often gathered around the compound fence when she returned from school. The women shook their heads, muttering blessings and warnings. This one will cause trouble, they said. Men, old and young, pretended not to stare but could not resist lingering gazes. Her classmates at school both admired and envied her. Teachers praised her brilliance, but it was her face that filled the halls with whispers. By the time Adaeze turned 16, her mother could not pass through the marketplace without someone commenting, "Chai, that's your daughter. She's finer than Nollywood actresses." Her father wore pride like a crown, convinced his daughter was destined for greatness because of her appearance. Beauty became her identity, the drumbeat of her existence. If she entered the room, silence followed her. If she smiled, hearts raced. If she frowned, everyone felt a shadow creep in. It was intoxicating. It was dangerous. From childhood, Adaeze learned that people treated her differently because of her looks. She cut lines in the market, walked away from trouble at school, and never apologized for her mistakes. Why should she? People excused her every wrong with, "She's just too fine to be blamed." Slowly, without knowing it, the soil of her heart grew fertile for pride to take root. By her 20s, Adaeze no longer saw herself as just any other woman. She saw herself as the woman. Whenever she stood before her mirror, she whispered, "There is no one like me in this world." And the sad truth was that the more she repeated it, the more she believed it. She loved to dress in ways that heightened her glow, choosing flowing Ankara gowns stitched by the best tailors, pairing them with gele that made her head rise above others like royalty. She adored jewelry, not for its beauty, but for the way it magnified hers. In the neighborhood, friends who once played 10-10 with her now avoided her. She dismissed their concerns, mocking their average looks, their small achievements, their quieter lives. "Why should I humble myself among these?" she often asked. Her voice, once sweet, turned sharp with contempt. Men flocked to her, desperate to impress. She welcomed them not for love, but for the thrill of conquest. If a man was already married or courting another woman, Adaeze considered it a challenge. To her, no man should resist her beauty. And when she succeeded, she wore the victory like beads on her neck, boasting to anyone who would listen. On social media, she found an even greater stage. Adaeze became a queen of Instagram, posting flawless photos where her hips curved like calligraphy and her eyes shone with practiced seduction. She had no interest in uplifting others. Instead, she mocked. "See as some of you be like bread we don't soak inside water," she once captioned, comparing herself to women she thought beneath her. The comments rolled in, some praising, some offended, but all feeding her ego. She was intoxicated with attention, drunk on the wine of vanity. Her heart, once soft, grew hard. She respected no one, not elders, not peers. Even her parents who had nurtured her received little gratitude. She believed the world owed her admiration, owed her men, owed her the crown of perfection. But seeds of pride do not remain buried forever. They always grow into thorns. The trail of Adaeze's life became littered with broken relationships and broken women. In her mid-20s, she stole the fiancé of her closest friend, Chamaka. They had grown up together, shared food, secrets, and laughter. But when Adaeze saw how Chiamaka's fiancé gazed lovingly at her friend, she became restless. If he can love her like this, imagine how much he would love me, she thought. Within months, the man was hers, leaving Chiamaka in tears. Another time, Adaeze pursued a man known for his faithfulness to his wife. People warned her, "Leave him alone, he is not for you." But warnings only fueled her determination. She lured him with flattery, seduction, and manipulation. By the time the affair came to light, the man's marriage had collapsed, his wife carrying their children back to her father's house. Adaeze felt no guilt. To her, it was another jewel in her crown. "If women cannot keep their men, is it my fault?" she asked arrogantly. Online, she flaunted her conquests. Subtle captions, veiled insults, half-naked photos that made fellow women hide their bodies in shame. Adaeze was the storm that swept through relationships, leaving ruins behind. Mothers warned their sons, "Don't bring Adaeze near this house." Wives warned their husbands, "Stay away from that girl." Yet the very danger she represented made her even more sought after by men who confused beauty with blessing. But there is a truth about broken hearts. They do not remain silent forever. Whispers of betrayal began to trail her name. Behind her back, women cursed her. Men spoke of her with admiration, yes, but also with caution, saying she was too dangerous to keep. And though Adaeze still believed herself untouchable, a shadow began to creep over her story. In her 30s, Adaeze had become more than a village beauty. She was an online icon. Her followers on Instagram and TikTok numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Brands sought her to advertise their clothes, hair extensions, and skincare creams. She accepted, but not for the money. Money was secondary. Fame was her real drug. Every photo was carefully staged, her lips glossed, her poses confident, her captions dripping with mercury or self-praise. She would write things like, "Don't compare yourself to me. Compare yourself to the old you. I'm the standard." Women who scrolled through her feed often left with wounded self-esteem. Men left with fantasies, some daring enough to message her, others just admiring from afar. Adaeze thrived on the chaos. When critics attacked her, she clapped back with venom. "You are only bitter because you can never be me," she wrote once to a woman who called her arrogant. She had no patience for kindness, no space for humility. The more she was hated, the louder her pride grew. She truly believed she was the most beautiful woman alive. But away from the camera's flash, loneliness began to whisper. She had many followers but no true friends. She had many lovers but no husband. Every relationship crumbled, not because men failed to love her beauty, but because they could not endure her arrogance. She dismissed them as weak, never considering that perhaps she was the problem. Still, Adaeze drowned those whispers in the applause of strangers. She told herself that beauty was her fortress and pride her throne. But fortresses can crumble, thrones can fall. And as her 30s marched toward 40, the applause grew quieter, the spotlight dimmer. Younger women fresh with youth began to dominate the screens. Adaeze, though still beauty, found her relevance sleeping. And the silence that replaced applause was more frightening than any insult she had ever received. Adaeze was 37 when she first noticed the fine line near her left eye. It was small, barely visible to others, but to her, it was a thunderclap. She pressed concealer over it, but every morning it seemed to stare back from the mirror, whispering, "Time is moving." At first, she laughed it off. She told herself she was still the goddess of beauty, the queen whose photos gathered thousands of likes within hours. But deep down, insecurity began to stare. She scrolled through her old posts, noticing the difference between then and now. 10 years ago, her beauty had been effortless. Sunlight seemed to follow her naturally. Now she needed filters, angles, lighting, and makeup to keep up. Worse still, younger women began to rise online. Girls in their early 20s, glowing with unspoiled skin, stole the limelight. Their feeds attracted brands that once courted Adaeze. Her followers remained, but their engagement waned. Fewer compliments poured in. Instead of, "You are the queen," comments now read, "You're still fine for your age." For your age? Those three words cut deeper than any insult. In her personal life, whispers multiplied. Families no longer saw her as a prize. Friends who had once envied her were now happily married, raising children. They posted family photos, smiling with husbands and toddlers. Adaeze scrolling alone, scoffed publicly but wept privately. She had dozens of lovers but no one who stayed. Men enjoyed her beauty but never considered her for the altar. Why marry Adaeze when her pride made her unbearable? At family gatherings, aunties whispered louder, "Fine girl no dey last forever." One muttered as Adaeze walked by. Another said, "She has wasted her youth chasing shadows." But Adaeze brushed them off. "I will marry when I choose. Men are still begging me." And it was true. Men still begged, but they begged for moments, not a lifetime. The difference was cruel, and though she refused to admit it, Adaeze felt her empire of beauty beginning to collapse. Her 40th birthday arrived quietly. No fanfare, no grand parties. She had thought about hosting one, but when she counted the people she could truly invite, the list was thin. Many of her old friends had cut ties. Married women avoided her, fearful of her history with their husbands. Men who once swarmed her were now busy with families of their own. That night, she sat in her living room alone. The lights of the city glowed through the window, but her house was silent. On the table lay an untouched cake she had bought for herself. Balloons tied to the chairs sagged as though they too were weary. Adaeze stared at her reflection in the dark screen of her phone. She was still beautiful, there was no denying it, but she felt something hollow inside. For the first time she asked herself, "Why am I still alone?" Memories came flooding back. Chiamaka's tears when she stole her fiancé, the children whose parents divorced after her affair, the countless women she mocked online. The way she had sneered at friends who only wanted her company, the way she had dismissed every man who didn't worship her enough. Her beauty had been her crown, but her pride had been the poison dripping from it. And now, at 40, she realized she had built her palace on sand. She broke down in tears, clutching her phone, scrolling through old photos. Thousands of likes, countless comments, but not a single message that said, "I truly care about you." The silence of her empty house was the loudest noise she had ever heard. The days after her birthday were heavy. Something inside her cracked. She began to reflect deeply for the first time in her life. She realized that beauty had blinded her to the things that truly mattered. Respect, kindness, humility, love. She had thrown them away as though they were cheap fabrics. She remembered her parents' warnings, the words of elders she had mocked, the friends she had betrayed. For the first time, Adaeze admitted, "I am not a good person." Determined to change, she sought reconciliation. She messaged Chiamaka apologizing for years of betrayal. The reply was cold. "I forgave you long ago, but I don't need you in my life." She reached out to women she had mocked online, but most ignored her. Others laughed. "Now that you're old, you want to preach kindness? I better carry your advice, go." She tried volunteering at a local church group, but whispers followed her. Mothers pulled their daughters away. "Be careful of her," they warned. She even attended weddings, sitting quietly at the back, but no one invited her to the dance floor. She was invisible now, except when someone muttered her name in scorn. Her efforts, though sincere, seemed too late. The bridges she had burned were ashes. People remembered her cruelty, not her attempts at change. She had once commanded attention, but now at every gathering she felt like a ghost haunting her own life. The realization was brutal. No one truly cares about outward beauty once the soul is ugly. One evening, Adaeze sat by her window, watching children play in the street. Their laughter rose like music, pure and unfiltered. She thought of the life she could have had, a husband, children, friends, laughter filling her home. Instead, she had spent her best years chasing admiration from strangers. Tears welled up again, but these were not the tears of self-pity. They were tears of awakening. She finally understood that beauty was never meant to be a weapon. It was meant to be a gift to reflect kindness, to inspire joy, to nurture love. She had wasted hers on arrogance. Adaeze began to live quietly. She stopped flaunting online. She dressed modestly, volunteered at orphanages where children cared nothing for her appearance but loved her when she read them stories. She planted flowers outside her house, creating beauty that did not depend on her face. But though she changed, she knew the truth. Her reputation was beyond repair. People respected her efforts but kept their distance. They saw her as a warning, not an example. One day, an old woman from her neighborhood stopped by her gate. She looked at Adaeze and said, "Daughter, you are still beautiful, but now your eyes show humility. If only you had learned this earlier, your life would have been different." Adaeze smiled sadly. "Yes, Mama, I thought beauty was everything, but I learned too late that it's nothing without goodness." She returned to her flowers, touching their petals gently. They bloomed, not for praise, not for applause, but simply because it was their nature. And in that quiet act of nurturing, Adaeze found a fragment of peace. Her story remained a whisper among the people, the tale of the most beautiful woman who had lost everything to pride. But in her heart, she carried a finer truth. Outward beauty fades, but inward beauty is what the world truly remembers. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.